I am social lubricant. So I was walking by this dumpster and I found a stack of magazines. They were like tied up with twine, like a Christmas present, you know? So my first night in really heavy seas, I kept getting thrown out of the bed. On the cruise ship, there are 80 dishes on the buffet. So, I mean, if you can't find something to eat at 80 dishes, then you shouldn't be out your house. You know, we make, $12 to $20,000 a month.
Welcome to Dre Smiley, the Inner Circle podcast. We have another great guest on the show.
Yes, we have a fascinating representative on the show today. Her name is Rachael Zavala, and she is a master chef. And not only a chef, but she's a chef for, I would imagine, longshoremen. Or I saw some of her videos. She's on a boat making these Capital Grill style dishes that looks very delicious. But Rachel, tell us, hey, how did you get started, or what is it that you're doing on the boat, and just your whole culinary experience?
Well, I've been a chef since I was a little girl. I always knew exactly what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. So I started my own catering company in my 20s. I went to culinary school in my 30s and then was working at big fancy restaurants in San Francisco and Oakland, and including Park Tavern and Plank and the Monk's Kettle. And then I won Chopped, the Food Network's Chopped. So I'm a Chopped champion. And then I had some things happen in my family. My son passed and COVID hit and things just got super crazy. And I just wanted to do something a little different. And I don't know, I guess I kind of ran away from home. I went and ran away to started working at Norwegian Cruise Lines, and I ran their buffet for a year. And then after that, I became a merchant marine. So now I work on ships that are transporting petroleum products, and I feed all the guys on the ship. So I live on the ship and work 7 days a week when I'm working. So I can work for 6 months in a row, or I can work for 2 months in a row or 3 months in a row. And I'm making, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the boys, and I love it.
That is so cool. So tell me this. So I've been on a few cruise ships, and I mean, it's so much food, so many different restaurants on the boat. When you were the cruise ship person, were you over all the buffets or one buffet, or how does the hierarchy work? And then is it different? I would imagine that it's the same crowd when you're on a merchant marine boat. Is it drastically different, or what's the pros and cons of each?
Yes. So on the cruise ship, I ran the only buffet on the ship. So I ran the Aloha Cafe, and we served breakfast, lunch, and dinner to 2,000 to 2,400 people. So it was a massive operation. I had a huge staff. Um, Everything was just had to be perfect all the time. And also super corporate recipes. I really couldn't be super creative as a chef. So now on the last boat I was on an articulated tugboat, and it was 10 people, and I can cook whatever I want. I have unlimited budget. I can make steak and lobster every meal if I wanted to, and boys probably like that.
I'm sure.
But yeah, so it's incredibly different being on the ship. The thing that's the same is that you are working 7 days a week. So on the cruise ship, my longest days in a row was 170. So I would work 13-hour days, 170 days in a row. It's a lot easier on the smaller ships, so I'll be on tankers and rollies, which are transporting like cars and stuff like that. But yeah, it's such a different lifestyle from being a chef on land, because on a chef on land, you're working 6, 7 days a week and you don't really get time off. But on a ship, you're making a lot more money and you get 6 months a year off. So it's just like kind of a crazy thing, but you have that trade off of not really, being home for part of the year. You're out at sea, but you're traveling to crazy places, Japan and Africa and all kinds of cool things like that. So it's just a very different lifestyle.
So, Rachel, my mind is literally blown right now. I have like a million questions for you, but we don't have that kind of time. So I'm trying to prioritize them in my head. So let's start from the beginning. So
Okay.
most people some people, not most. Some people live their entire lives trying to figure out, what is it I'm supposed to do? I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. At a young age, you realize you wanted to be a cook, a chef. Where'd that come
Yeah,
from?
so I was walking. I grew up in the projects. We were really really
Okay.
poor, and my mom was in college, working hard to get her young self financially viable. So I was walking by this dumpster and I found a stack of magazines. They were like tied up with twine, like a Christmas present.
Yeah.
And I love to read, so I grabbed this stack of magazines, and they were gourmet magazines, and it was just like, to my poor, little self. I went up in my little tree house, and I read all summer. I read these magazines, and I just, you know, I think it was like 8 or 9. By the time I was 10, I was babysitting, and I would save my money to buy like spices I couldn't pronounce.
Wow.
And I just knew. I mean, I read those books, and I just wanted to be a chef. I wanted to be a great chef, like the chefs I was reading about on the pages. So
Okay.
I just knew right away when I was really young. But that was kind of the start of it.
And then take me back to when you first got validated, right? So there are times when we realize, oh, I'm going to be an artist. And so we start drawing and painting, but then, at some point we realize, I'm not good at this. Or if we're lucky enough, we realize that, oh yeah, we have a talent. When did you get validated? When did you realize, oh, I'm pretty good at this?
Well, when I was in culinary school, I bought the cheap like chef set. It was like $100 for all my knives,
Okay.
right? So one of the big, and I'm one of the few girls, right, that do what I do. It's definitely a man's world out there in the chef world.
Yeah.
But so one of these big braggadocio guys comes in, and he's showing off his fancy Japanese knife that he paid, $1 billion for.
Right.
And our the head of our program sees this guy just bragging about his knife, and he says, "Hey, Rachael, go get your chef's knife." And I did. And he goes, "All right, Nick, if you're such a great chef with this great knife, I'd like to see you and Rachael cook the same dish.
Ooh.
And she's going to use her $7 knife, and let's see who does a better job."
Okay.
And of course, I crushed him.
Okay. What did you make? What did you make?
At the time, we were making pâté grand mère, which is it's like French meatloaf, but it's a lot more complicated than that. It's a pâté. It's a force meat, and yeah, it's a very highly specialized kind of like meatloaf.
Okay.
But yeah, so we both made it, and of course, mine didn't break and was really beautiful, and his was kind of a hot mess. So
Wow.
after that, I was like, yeah, I got this.
Right. This is what I'm here for. And I'll pass it back to
Yeah.
Smiley here. My next question is Chopped. Tell me how that came about and the feeling you had when you won. How did it come about?
Well, I always tell the story this way, and I hope it's okay if I say this word
Yeah.
on your podcast. But so in my field, there are not very many women. So they really, really try to have a good balance on the show.
Okay.
And so I think I was cast because I have a vagina,
Okay.
so because I'm a girl.
Okay.
But I had a friend that sent me the flyer and said, you should apply to be on the show. And I think I did it in July, and by August I had been cast. So they did a couple of virtual interviews with us.
Okay.
And then they flew out to my little restaurant at the time that I was working at, which was called The Growler. It was in Danville, California, and they filmed a bio. And then I went to New York for 3 days. It was the only time I'd ever been. I went and stayed at this little youth hostel in the Chelsea district. And we went to the to the Starbucks in the morning, and you can tell who the chefs are. We all had our knife bags on our back.
Okay.
And I looked at my competition, and I was like, I'm totally going to win this.
You're like, I've got this.
They were all super young and really nervous. And I had a lot more experience, and experience is, it's pretty valuable in those type of, clutch situations where you really have to think on your feet. And
Sure.
so we went in there, and I just got lucky, honestly. I mean, I left something off the plate in the first round. I cut my finger in the first round. I left something off the plate in the second round, and I still won.
Wow.
So just pretty unusual. So.
Wow. And the feeling you had when you won. So describe that feeling. It sounds like it didn't come as a complete surprise to you.
Well, after leaving something off the plate, I was a little nervous. But it's a really long day. I was in New York. It was January. It was really, really cold. There was just a blizzard coming into town. All of the staff was trying to get out. And when I won, it was just like surreal, because I knew, it's like being a heavyweight boxing champ or something like that. It's like this title that will follow you for the rest of your life.
Wow.
And it opens up doors, and
Okay.
it changes things for you forever, And so I didn't have anybody with me on the trip. I was there by myself. So, and they don't let you have your phone all day long.
Mm.
So they're walking me out and they're congratulating me, patting me on the back, and literally just walk me to this door, open the door, and poof out into the cold New York snow, and the door
Back to
shuts behind
reality.
me. And I'm like standing out there, this California girl freezing her ass off.
Yeah.
And I immediately called my daughter, who I'm really close to, and called my best friend. And I was like, and I had told Tasty is my best friend, and I had told him, as long as I don't cut my finger or leave something off the plate, I think I have a good shot, And he's like, "How did it go?" And I was like, "Well, I I cut my finger, I left
Off the
something off the
plate.
plate." And he's like, "Oh, baby, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. I know you." And I was like, "No, I won." And he was like, So yeah, it was really fun.
Well, tell me this. You mentioned this boating. I mean, sailing around the world is sounds. You hear that about Navy guys or
Yeah.
Navy representatives, but tell me, what are some of the coolest spots you've been to that you didn't anticipate? You mentioned Japan and Africa, but like, did you go to South Africa, to Ghana? Where did you go
No,
that
no,
you
no,
never thought
no.
you would be? That was cool.
So my very first boat I went on, they fell madly in love with me and didn't let me go. And that boat went from LA to San Francisco. So
Oh.
that's what I've been that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
But right now I just upgraded my certifications so that I can go on the larger tankers. So I'll be going to New York to visit with my friend Dwayne, and then after that, I will be going out to sea. And I don't know where I'm going, but I'm hoping to go to Japan or Africa or someplace like
Wow.
that. So,
Wow.
but I've been to Hawaii. I lived for a year in Hawaii on the cruise ship and traveled to all four of the islands and got a lot of. There's a lot of time to be off the boat and to, especially in my position, and to explore wherever you are. So I'm really excited to keep going doing that.
So cooking on land, which is stable, but you're from California, it shakes every now and then. But when you're on a boat, it's shaking constantly. Did you have to change your game, or did you have to work on your balance, or what do you do when it's rough seas? It's ready to eat meals that time when is the
No.
weather bad?
Ramen noodles.
So yeah, no, 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 no. That is a very, very good question because there are times when it's 10 to 12 foot swells for us where your knives are sliding all over the counter, things are falling off the counter. We have special roll bars that we put up to keep pans on the stove. You're not going to use a deep fryer because the oil is just going to,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
slosh right out, be very much a hazard, a health hazard. But yeah, it's crazy. I have some really funny videos, which I'll send you guys some of the videos.
Yeah.
But there's some really funny videos of me trying to keep everything, like you can't just put your coffee on the counter because it's just going to go flying off. It's the same as sleeping at night. So my first night in really heavy seas, I kept getting thrown out of the bed. I had this literally like 'cause you're just dozing off, and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, and I had this big shelf right behind my bed. And serendipitously in the middle of the night, there'd be like a deodorant falls on my head or a book falls on my head. And I had to clear the whole, I had to clear the whole shelf, all the shelves off
Yeah.
because it was a hazard. But yeah, it's very different trying to cook on the ship, and all of the cabinetry locks closed. So when you close, the silverware drawer, anything like that, it has a little button that actually locks it closed, or stuff's going to be everywhere. Yeah.
I have two more questions, then I'm gonna turn it back to Dre. But one is, you're in the food business. Are you regulated by safe quality food, FSMA, or any sort of the food regulation that occurs on land with, say, Driscoll's or any of these big food manufacturers? Does it extend to the water, or is it a totally different organization?
It does extend to the water. So especially on Pride of America, the cruise ship, we are regulated by the Coast Guard. So we actually have twice a week, we have very, very, very intense inspections of the kitchen. So they're constantly checking to make sure that everything is immaculately clean, that all of the food is being served at the correct temperature, that we're storing everything correctly, labeling everything correctly. So that's what happens on the cruise ships. It's very, very regulated. On the smaller ships, I do have a national certification, a ServSafe manager certificate. So I have to keep it updated. But we don't have inspections on the smaller ships. We're expected to be educated, to have a certain amount of knowledge as a baseline to even beyond those smaller ships. So
No, that's awesome. My background, I work in the food industry, and we deal with the SQF and BRC and all the different regulatory bodies, GMPs of these manufacturing facilities. But the second question is, you mentioned earlier that there's not a lot of women. Do you think that's changing over time as they see you on Top Champion and the other young ladies see more women, that the trend's changing, or is it just something that's been exclusively for men and that's why it's hard to bust into that realm?
it's definitely changing, especially in California, where DEI is very much it's very much a focus. Especially, I'm from San Francisco, so we're very, very diversity, equality, being inclusive. So I have seen that change actually quite a bit just since I've been a chef. So I've been a chef maybe like 30 something years, but on the ships it's still very, very, very much. I have never had another woman on the smaller ships. So obviously, on Pride of America, of the 12 chefs on the ship, 3 of us were females, um, and we were a very tight group of girls. But out on the merchant marines, I haven't met really other women that do it. So I'm always the only girl on the ship. I definitely bring mama energy to the table, and the boys are always very, very sweet and very protective of me. And
Great.
yeah, actually a really familial. Obviously, we're together, all the time, 24 hours a day for however long. So it's
Yeah.
very familial, and I'm a good cook, so they're always trying to baby mama because she's
Right,
making the
right,
good stuff. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
So yeah,
She's okay. We eat well.
yes, yes,
So tell me this, Rachel, as you think back over the decades you've been a chef, people's dietary needs have evolved, right?
yes.
Gluten free, dairy free. Some people are just picky eaters. As a chef, whether it's in a restaurant or on a ship, a cruise ship especially, how do you address those needs? Because if you're cooking, and I have no idea about cooking, but I imagine if you're cooking large meals, right? It's difficult to create large meals with a
That appeal to
variety
everybody. Yeah.
of dietary needs. So how do you address that?
On the ship, it's really easy. So my boys on my last ship were all really in very good shape. They're young, they're in good shape, they wanted healthy food. And so
Okay.
I'm from California, where a lot of our cuisine is very produce focused. Like, we're focused on that farm to table, you want the
Uh,
freshest ingredients.
okay.
So on the ship in the morning, I try to provide quite a bit of variety. So I always have fruit or protein smoothies for them when they get up in the morning. So when they
Wow.
get up, they're going to order from me what they want from breakfast, but they can sit, and have their little smoothie while they're waiting. At lunch, I always have a very extensive salad bar. So
Wow.
they can pick what they want off the salad bar, and I'll do, like, smoked salmon and some chicken breast and hard boiled eggs. And I'll have a little composed salad, pasta salad, something like that, and a variety of dressings. So if the boys are really trying to, stay fit, and we have a gym on the ship and they do work out. A lot of them work out every day. So I do try to just have healthier options on that salad bar, and I'll always have a soup for lunch. And usually it'll be like tacos or a burrito or quesadillas or a sandwich or what have you for lunch.
Mm.
So they always have a pretty good variety. And same for dinner time. We always have a salad bar. And my style of cooking is just lighter. I like produce, and so there's always going to be like a nice, some asparagus or green beans or something like that for
Mm.
them to eat. But definitely, anytime there's something fried, they get very excited about it. So,
Okay. Okay.
but it's really just about providing, a variety. My captain was a super picky eater, and he wasn't always down to eat, mole or whatever I was making. So I would just always have like a piece of chicken or steak for him to have that alternative. It's easy when there's only 10 people on the ship, to kind of like, you get to know what they like and what they don't like. And
Sure.
so it's kind of easy to accommodate it.
But what about on a cruise ship? How does that
On
Check.
the cruise ship, there are 80 dishes on the buffet. So, I mean, if you can't find something to eat at 80 dishes, then you shouldn't be out your house. You know what I mean? Like just stay home and eat your Pop Tarts or whatever it is you
Right.
like, because I mean, like there's a
Right.
lot of variety on the ship, a lot of variety. So,
Yeah, the cruise ship, or not, I'm sorry, not the cruise ship, but the other ship you mentioned sounds like my kind of ship to be on in terms of it has a gym, you have smoothies for breakfast, you have a lot of fruit. That's the way I should be eating, you know. Where can me and Smiley take a cruise for like maybe 6 months
come
on
on
there, and just
down, you
so
guys.
so we can get right, and then
Exactly. Yeah, you would love it. It's a lot of fun, actually. I mean,
okay.
it's beautiful being out on the ocean, and you're really connected to nature, and it's a lot. I mean, I really love what I do. So,
I can tell. I can tell. It shows through. So this may end up becoming one of our segments, Smiley. Let me know what you think. So I mentioned this on one other podcast, the GBU. So my family, whenever we have experiences as a group or individually, I'll ask what has been the good, the bad, and the ugly from the experience. So we think back 30 years as a chef. I know one of the challenges you face is being, one of the minorities in terms of being a woman, right? There are few women. Give me the other GBU. Give me a GBU in terms of what it's like being a chef, generally speaking.
the good is if you have ADHD, which clearly I do. Um, you're always multitasking. There's always the adrenaline rush. There's always something going on. You can be endlessly creative. You can endlessly educate yourself. You never know you're never going to know everything, about food and cuisine and different ethnic cuisines. There's always something else to be learning. So that's the good. That's the thing I love about it. And taking care of people. Like I love to feed people. It's a very intimate, loving thing to do. And I really enjoy it. The bad is, it's a servant industry, and they treat you like your time is not of value. So if you're a salaried chef, you're working all the time, and they don't respect your boundaries with your home life. It can be incredibly consuming, and I think that's one of the main reasons that I left, regular restaurants is because I just wasn't getting time to myself. I needed time to grieve my son's loss. I needed time to just for myself to do stuff. So that's kind of the bad of it, is that they really treat you kind of like you're just a servant, and it's a vocational job,
Yeah,
very blue collar, so it
yeah.
doesn't get a lot of respect. um so the good, the bad, and the ugly. mm, I don't know, I don't know, to me
And
there's
and there
nothing
may not be an
ugly
ugly.
about it, like I mean, it would be that, the sexism is hard. It was hard for a long time. You have these super bro chefs. The guy, he's got his own apron that he brought in. He can't use the one that we get from, Alsco. He's got the big garlic clove and the cleaver tattoo on his arm. And he
Is that a
thinks he's
thing?
just, oh, it's such a thing in my industry. It's such a thing. And
Okay.
they're so annoying and condescending. And
Uh,
then you get on the line, and then you find out that, you know, they're not that great, and
right,
I'm running circles around them. And then it's just,
right.
then it's always fine. But so, yeah, definitely, that's why Chopped was a huge thing for me, because that's really stands out on your resume, and that's going to
Mm,
get you that job ahead of, Mr. Garlic Clove Tattoo. So,
validation. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Well, tell me. I always wondered this, especially going back to the cruise, because I think I've been on 3 or 4 cruises, and the volume of food that's on the boat. And then at the end, like it seemed like there's a lot of waste. Would you say it's 20%, 5%, 70% food waste? Because I always see a buffet, it's always stacked. And I'm like, they can't leave it here forever. And I can't believe everyone's eating all these
No.
fries and burgers that are there.
Okay, so what you're really seeing is, so we actually replenish over and over and over. So we're only putting out a small amount of the total food, right? So even if you see the buffet at the end of the night and it looks really full, it's probably a very small percentage of what we actually made to serve that day. So what happens is, on the cruise ships, we have a giant garbage disposal. We call it the pulper or the grinder. And all of our food waste goes into this giant garbage disposal, and then it's fed back to the ocean. So we have to go out a certain amount offshore, and then we can dislodge it from the ship. So the food doesn't get like thrown away. It kind of goes back out into the ocean and it goes to like, I guess, feed the fish or whatever.
Mm.
But yeah, it's, I know it seems that way, but those little tiny, like they're like these big containers and you'll see like that amount of food. That is such a small percentage of the food that we're actually creating to feed people. So it's really not that. I mean, if let's say we do 100 pounds of chicken, you know, we might throw away 3 or 4 pounds. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's really not that much, believe it or not.
So no, that's fair. I was always curious about that. So let's get into the business side. You mentioned the trawlers, the tugboats, and you mentioned you just got your certification to travel. So I live in Tampa, Florida, and in Miami you have
Yeah.
those big old yachts like
Yes. Yes.
Larry Ellison yachts, the Bill Gates yachts. Is the experience like the chef on those yachts similar to the experience of what you're doing?
It is a little different because it's a lot more intensive. So when you're on the luxury yachts, you're basically on call if there is a charter on the boat. So if there's anybody on the boat, the owner, or if they've chartered it out to guests or what have you, you're basically on call 24 hours. So like let's say you have 15 people on the boat, and you know a couple of them get up at 3 in the morning and are like, we really like a snack. So you're on call to get up at 3 a.m. and go make a snack. So when on my little ship, I have 3 meal times. My meal times are, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they're just an hour each. So if you're not out eating in that hour, then
You
you
don't
know
eat.
that's it. So that my work schedule starts about 5 a.m. and I'm done by like 6:30, and I have plenty of downtime during the day, right? So like it doesn't take much to make some eggs. Like after breakfast, I'm gonna go chill out, you know, watch some TV, whatever.
Mm.
On the cruise ship, everything is very tightly segmented. So you are working 13 hours a day, but 4 hours of that is breakfast, 4 hours of that is lunch, 4 hours of that, you know, is dinner, and then an hour of shutdown or what have you. So it's very, very segmented. So it's very different from the luxury yachts, because the luxury yachts you're basically on call 24 hours a day and you probably don't have a staff. It's probably just you, maybe one prep cook or one utility is what we call dishwashers. So you might have one person helping you clean or something like that. But for the most part, I see some of these guys at the end of these hitches where they've had a lot of charters and they're just exhausted. Like they have like not slept in weeks because
Mm.
if they have that type of client that really wants, you know, that round the clock service. So yeah, it's very different.
Mm.
So from the business part of it, what is like in corporate America, you get the
Yeah.
entry level, you get the CEO at the top, CFO. So in the chef world, is it the to own your own restaurant or to own your own ship, or what is like Nirvana, the top of the pole for a chef with the hierarchical and like this is my dream. If I could rub the genie and get my best chef job or chef position.
Well, there are two different paths. There's the path to like fame and glory, right? You want to win Chopped and you want to work at the best restaurant in San
Mhm.
Francisco and you want to be in the newspapers. I mean, I'm very Googleable. I don't know if you guys have Googled me, but it's easy to find me out there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Mhm.
So there's that path, and that path is poorly paid and very consuming. Like, have you guys seen the movie The Menu? You got to see this movie. It's very much like your whole life is trying to be innovative and you're thinking about food all the time. And
Mm.
that's all that you do. Like, I mean, you know, if you have a partner, they better be in the industry or they're not going to see you at all, you know?
Mm.
So that's one path, and that's the path to fame and glory, right? And then there's
Mhm.
another path, which is like more of a financially focused path, right?
Mhm.
Or you want creative freedom, or you just want more freedom in your life. And I think I'm at the age where I'm more focused on, you know, financial freedom and being able to do whatever I want, like you know, being able to travel, right? So that's this other path, which I'm on. And so for the money path, you're going to start down at the bottom. You're going to work your way up to executive chef or chef owner, right? So that's that path. On my path, you're going to start as like an SA, which is like a steward attendant, which is like washing dishes, things like that, and you work your way up. Because of my culinary background, I never had to do any of that. So I started as like a chief cook. So I've started as,
Wow.
you know, somebody who is running a galley and doing the ordering and doing all the menu planning. So I've already been doing that. The certification I'm getting now makes it possible for me to do that on the largest commercial ships, right? So I've been doing it on smaller ships, so now I'll be able to do it on the larger commercial ships.
Wow.
And then there's so yeah, that's kind of the progression, right? And we make $12,000 to $20,000 a month, and we get PTO,
Wait, what?
and yeah,
Wait, you buried the lead. Hold on. You can just gloss over that. Wait, circle back, circle back. Are y'all hired?
exactly. So I can make, I mean, the average for me is like $12,000 to $16,000 a month, and I have 6 months off a year. And for those 6 months, I'm being paid for 3 of them.
Wow.
So
Hello.
it's just, yeah. So it's like, and I get to travel all over the world, and I get to cook whatever I want, and I get to pick and choose where I want to be. So it's very, very much a life of freedom and financial security. You know what I mean? So like, when I'm off, I'm really off. I mean, you think about it when you're working your job that you're working at right now, and you work your 5 days a week or your 6 days a week, and you have that 2 days off. What do you do on your day off? You're like doing the laundry, and you're like trying to go grocery shopping, and you're like
Thinking
trying
about
to
work.
thinking about work. Exactly. When I'm off, I'm off. Like I can do whatever I want. I can take a month-long vacation somewhere. I can go get an Airbnb in Italy if I feel like it. So like, there's just a lot of, and I have the money to do it, like, I mean, I probably make twice what I would, if I was working 360 days a year,
Sure.
Searching out that fame and glory, so.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And before I turn it back to Dre, so once you get your commercial and you start traveling around the world, does that mean do you have to get passports for? I mean, do you have to get a passport? Do you have to get visas because when you're traveling on a cruise ship and you go to Honduras, you're only there for 3 hours, so they let you off. You got to get back. But when you are on these other type of commercial vehicles, would you go and dock
Mhm.
there, say in Africa or let's say South Africa for 5 days to load the boat, and then you get to hang out, or do you got to get visas every time you go to port?
No, so we have special transportation worker credentials. So we have
Mhm.
specific, and it's very difficult to get them. It takes quite a bit of time, and you have to have special training. So I have 2 different credentials. One is a MMC, which is a merchant mariner credential, and then the other one is a TWIC card, which is a transportation worker credential. So I have 2 different
Mhm.
credentials that allow me to get on and off the boat. I also have a passport. So I have a passport as well. So there's a lot of specialized training that we have, and there are special classes we have to take, and Coast Guard endorsements that we get that go on our MMC, which looks like it looks just like a passport, but it's red.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a
No.
lot of special stuff that we have that makes it so that we can travel freely. Like I have to have medical exams twice a year. I have, lots of inoculations you probably have never even heard of. So like, yellow fever, I have to get a shot for yellow fever. But yeah, so there's a whole bunch of stuff that we do that makes it so that we're able to travel like
Okay.
internationally.
So, Rachel, the real reason that I was excited to have you on is because I have a 15-year-old son with a hellacious appetite. Give me a meal
Mm.
that I can make for him that is easy to make. I can teach him how to make um, something, affordable, not lobster or anything like that. Good chance
Hmm.
he's a picky eater. There's a good chance that he'll actually eat the meal. What do you recommend?
Well, I would have to ask him a bunch of questions, like what does he like? Is he like crunchy food? Does he like seafood? Is he avoiding
Uh,
what? Does he eat pork? Does he
well,
not eat
I'll
pork?
tell you
Like
his
what kind
go-tos,
of
and
eater
then you
is
can
he?
tell me. Maybe you can
Okay.
give an idea based on
Okay.
that. His go-tos are pizza,
Okay.
hamburgers, fries, chicken wings, ramen noodles. Uh, I did say he was a 15-year-old boy, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So what do you
Well,
recommend?
all of those things are fantastic options for
Yeah.
15-year-old boys. I mean, what I would do is I would probably try to have a lot of fresh fruits or fresh vegetables for him to put in that ramen soup. So I'd maybe try to, steam some
Okay.
asparagus and just get a bunch of stuff. Because, you've seen the really pretty ramen
Yeah.
where they have the egg in
Yes.
it and they have the
Yes.
chicken in it. So that's what I used to do for my son when he was
Okay.
young is we did have a lot of spicy ramen and stuff around the house, but we'd really doll it up with a bunch of extra
Okay.
things. So put some protein in there, put some mushrooms in there, whatever it is you think
Okay.
they'll eat. and then drizzle it with like a little spicy, sriracha or some
Okay.
gochujang, and then
I like that. I
yeah,
like that. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it out. And I'll circle back and let you know
because
how it
that's
goes.
easy and
That's
yeah.
easy. I can teach him how to do it.
I mean, I can tell you how I do pizza, but it's not easy. It's a very laborious
Why doesn't that
process,
surprise me?
So.
I'd love to come on one of your ships somewhere, so I can just get a meal and get a sense of what these boys are getting on a regular basis. So tell me this before we go to the final four here. You shared a lot. You have an amazing story, an amazing journey. What's one thing that people don't know about you that you wish they knew?
Um, I don't know. I'm like super outspoken, so I think everybody knows everything kind of about me. But I grew up on an island,
Mm,
so I grew up on an island on the Stockton Delta. I had to take a boat to
awesome.
school, and it kind of was one of the first things that really turned me on to food because we were right across from this a farm. So asparagus grew wild on the island, and we'd eat wild
Wow.
asparagus. And we had blackberries grew wild on the island, and we make blackberry
Wow.
cobblers. And we had a big fig tree. We'd eat figs, all day long. So it's like part of my connection, I feel like, to nature is that growing up like that. I took a boat to school. We lived like very rurally. There's only 4 other people that lived on the
Wow.
island besides my
Yeah.
family. And so, yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. I mean, my first job was at this place called Lost Isle, which was like this really raucous, crazy, wild stripper poles, island
Okay.
resort. And yeah, the first time I won the wet t-shirt contest, I was too young to collect the prize.
I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to know anymore.
So where was this island? Was it in
Like
California
Smiley's
or
trying to get
Rocky
over there.
Island?
He's trying.
It's
Smiley's like,
called
how can I get
it's
there?
the address the address is Light 24 Lost
Uh,
Isle, Stockton, California. I think it's 95209. So I still remember the
wow.
Wow.
address. Yeah. So it's way out there but it's also part of the Stockton is the largest inland port in the United States. So it's also like a commercial, shipping way and stuff.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
so cool. Well, tell me. So I may twist this question up a little bit because the first Final Four question is usually alive or dead, if you were to have dinner with 3 other representatives, you're at the table and 3 other representatives, who would they be and why? But I would have put a twist on it and say, you're a master chef. If you had the luxury of cooking a meal for 3 representatives or 4, alive or dead, who would those representatives be and why?
well, I probably would pick Bartolomeo Scapi. He was the chef for Pope Pius
Oh, wow.
V in like 1570, so like a long, long time ago. And I actually still cook some of his recipes. So he has these amazing. He's Italian, obviously, and there's this great. He has this book that he wrote, the opera of
Mm.
Scapi, and I've made several of the dishes from that, and I'd love to modernize them and like serve them back to this master chef. So that's one. Um, Probably Alice Waters because I'm just such a huge fan of the movement that she started with farm to
Mm-hmm.
table and like getting to know your farmers and having your hands in the
Mm.
soil and having your hands, on fresh produce and stuff like that. So I'd love to cook a meal for her and just talk to her about how that all started and like what inspired her to like do that. So that would be my second person. And then probably would love to just make another meal for my son,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Mm.
I'm sure it would be Nutella
Okay.
and something,
Okay.
but
Yeah, that's great.
he
All
loved raw
right.
oysters. I don't know, just to be able to do
Yeah.
mommy
Yeah.
food, do mommy food for my family. Their favorite was always this pasta dish. So we would take anchovies and garlic and hot pepper
Wow.
flakes and we'd toast breadcrumbs in this mixture and then just toss it with butter and pasta. And it was like my kids like go to like, mac and
Yeah.
cheese or whatever. They loved
Sounds
it. So that was like our
that
family
sounds
dish.
good. Sounds good. What would you say has been your greatest success?
Um, I think my greatest success is reinventing
Mm.
myself during COVID. I mean, it was just such a difficult time as a chef. We were all working like 70, 80-hour weeks because we were all on salary and they basically laid off every hourly employee. And just being able to be in the middle of that chaos, in the middle of that crisis and trauma, and be able to say, all right, that's enough. This isn't healthy for me. I'm not happy. What else am I going to do? And I still want to cook. I still want to be a chef. So it did all this exploring and went out on the cruise ship and decided, I love this life and this is what I want to do. And I'm really, really coming back into peace and to happiness and joy and love and, all of those things. So it's been, winning Chopped was amazing,
Sure.
obviously. But I think for me personally, just being able to reinvent myself during this period of time and at my age,
Yeah.
53, I'm just excited to be able to come through that, and be in a better place.
I love that.
Oh, that's awesome. So, what would you say is your unique superpower?
I am social lubricant.
Okay. Okay.
Social
I
lubricant.
love that.
Like,
Yeah. If your party's dry and boring, call Rachael.
I'm there. But no, I'm very much a people person. I'm a 1% extrovert. I love people. I don't have a lot of the people fear that probably is normal and healthy. I don't have any of that. I just love people, and so I'm an uber extrovert, and I am also I really love people, so I can hook people together and connect people to things that they're interested in that maybe they're too shy to explore themselves. So I think that's my superpower is
I
social
love it.
lubricant.
Love it. So in my mind, you clearly have at least 2 books in you. One's a cookbook and one is an autobiography. What would the title of your autobiography be?
Probably something along the lines of chef life, a girl, knife and
Oh,
fire,
I like it. I like it.
something like
Girl, knife,
that.
and
I gotta
fire.
write that down.
I
Something
love
like
that.
that.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
That is so cool. Well, Rachel, we
Something
want
like
to
that.
thank you. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us. Are you on a boat now, or are you land bound?
So I'm at a U.S. Coast Guard facility right now doing some assessments and certifications so that I'll leave out again probably May 18th, 19th
Awesome.
to go out to sea.
Well, thank you very much for just being here. Your story, I've never met anyone who's been a chef at this capacity. I met the person at Capitol Grill here in Tampa and a couple of local restaurant chefs, but your whole experience is just intriguing and fascinating to me. And so thank you very, very much for joining the podcast and sharing your amazing life with our listeners. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope that representation means everything. I hope there's some little girl out there right now going, "Hey, yeah, I want to travel the world. I want to be a
Yeah,
chef." So I'm always trying to, if you guys know, showing up means everything to the kids coming up and
for
wondering what am I
sure.
going to do when I grow up. So thank you for that
For sure.
opportunity.
Yeah, and I'll just add to what Smiley said, prior to meeting you, in terms of your experience winning Chopped, I guess the most successful chef I know or knew is the lady that works at the hot wing place down the street. So, so the bar has been raised. Your story, your
I'm
journey
not going to
is
diss good wings. I
yeah. I
love
mean,
them.
you gotta
So
have them. You gotta have them,
that woman
right?
has
You
my
gotta have them.
complete respect.
Right, right. But your journey is amazing. My condolences for your loss. The fact that you're able to make a pivot at this stage in your life successfully, right, says a lot. And you hinted on this just a moment ago. Hopefully this will be inspiring to anyone of any age who has an interest in, living out their passion, which you're clearly doing. Thanks for being on our show.
Thanks, guys.
All right.